Hey everyone, Richard Phillips back at you with some more modern action. Today we are looking at something really exciting. I posted this on my Twitter page a couple of days ago and got some feedback from you guys, the lovely audience, as well as some other people. This is an Esper Gifts deck that is looking to take advantage of some of the cards of the newly released Guilds of Ravnica. We're still in the pre-release section. The set hasn't gone live in paper yet, so the only place you can test really is with your friends or on Magic Online. I'm waiting for Mana Traders to get stocked with the rest of the cards that I need for the Jund series, which I have just on hold until I believe this Thursday or so when I can start renting those cards on Mana Traders. So today I bought a few cards so we can test out something really cool in the Esper Gifts archetype. Esper Gifts is one of my pet decks. I love the deck. I've done a couple of videos on it already. You can go back in my video history and find those. It is a deck that is based around the card Gifts Ungiven. You can cast Gifts Ungiven and choose up to 4 cards. In the case of Esper Gifts, you will usually choose 2. You will choose Unburial Rites, and in the matchup, either Iona Shield of Emeria against combo decks, or Elish Norn Grand Cenobite against creature decks. And basically, this Gifts Ungiven turns into a 1-card combo of Unburial Rites plus the other card, and then you can win the game on turn 5. However, it is combo control, and you're not necessarily first off guaranteed to draw gifts on the correct turn, and also you're not even sure that gifts is the correct way of winning the game. There's a lot of matchups like Tron or KCI where Iona and Elish Norn do basically nothing. So you have other ways to win the game. Those include Jace the Mind Sculptor, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, Secure the Wastes, as well as also your anemic Snapcaster Beats. In addition to all of this, you also have a bunch of removal spells to survive, as well as a bunch of different verdict effects. You have 2 Supreme Verdicts, 1 Day of Judgment, 1 Wrath of God for casting off Gifts Ungiven. So a bunch of cool things going on. However, we have a couple of new tools for the deck that I think are kind of taking it actually to the next level. The biggest one of which is Connive and Concoct. This card is excellent. The Connive portion of this is more or less irrelevant in the main board. Sometimes post-board, taking control of creatures their opponent has of power 2 or less is important. But it's really the Concoct part that's interesting. Concoct says, Surveil 3, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Alright, so on the surface that seems like it's really situational, but this deck has the ability to actually really set this up well. The ways it can set it up are with Serum Visions. If you know you have a fatty on top of your library, with Serum Visions, you can then cast Concoct to get it on the battlefield. You have Collective Brutality, where if you draw the card, you can bin it from your hand. You have the new card Mission Briefing, where you can surveil it off the top of your library. You have Search for Azcanta as another way to get it off the top of your library. And you have Jace the Mind Sculptor to put it back on top of your library. So between all of those cards, oh, and also the one Discovery Dispersal, same thing, put it in the graveyard. So you have a bunch of different ways to put it in the graveyard. What is really cool about the Connive and Concoct is that post-board, especially if you beat them with the Gifts play in Game 1, a lot of opponents are going to bring in cards like Relic of Progenitus or Nihil Spellbomb or something similar. Connive and Concoct actually gets around that. Your opponent doesn't get priority at any point to exile the card from your graveyard. So if you can use the Surveil 3 to put the card in the graveyard, you will immediately get to put it back into play. And the opponent will not get to use their Relic of Progenitus or their Nihil Spellbomb or their Tormod's Crypt or a few other effects. Doesn't work for things that exile the whole graveyard, like Rest in Peace or Leyline of the Void, but it does work for quite a bit of hate, which is why I'm really excited about playing the card. That's basically our main deck. We got removal spells, plus our combo, plus a few fair ways to win the game. We also have our manlands of Creeping Tar Pit and Celestial Colonnade to get there. However, that's not necessarily exactly what you want to be doing. Alright, moving on to the sideboard, we have a few cards that are also new. We have Unmoored Ego. I've been really excited about what Unmoored Ego does for this archetype. There's a lot of decks like the ones I mentioned, Tron and KCI, that were previously awful matchups for this deck because none of the cards in our main deck really interact well with it. We have this combo that doesn't do anything against the deck, and we have a bunch of cards like Wrath of God, Day of Judgment, Collective Brutality. Like none of these cards are good. Fatal Push. All these are really bad. Unmoored Ego is a way for this deck to fight through Tron and hopefully win the game by either taking them off of Tron lands or off of threats. It's also excellent against combo decks, things like that. So we'll see what the power of Unmoored Ego is. We have our 4 spell quellers for when we know our opponent's bringing in Rest in Peace and things like that. We can just kind of board out of our gifts plan and into spell queller beatdowns, which is an unexpected turn of events a lot of the times. You can even keep in the Elish Norn just to like hard cast it for 7 mana to buff the spell quellers, and flying in for 4, which is very good against a lot of opponents. We've got some duresses and some surgical extractions for some unfair matchups. Vendilion Click as another creature, which also works relatively well with the Connive and Concoct, and a couple of Stony Silence. When we bring in the Stony Silence, sometimes we bring out our Talismans. I guess one thing I should mention is that the Talismans are in the deck because we don't actually have anything on 3 mana. You can see we go 1, 2, 4. We have 11 4-drops. So we are looking to like double spell on turn 3, or with our Talisman, move up to turn 4 or to our 4 mana spells on turn 3. And a turn 3 Jace is actually really good against a lot of matchups, especially on the play. Like if the opponent goes like turn 1 Tapland, turn 2 Goyf, and our turn 3 play is Jace, Bouncer, Goyf, that puts us really far ahead. So I'm excited to see what those cards can do in this matchup. All right, so we're going to run through a league, and we'll see what the power Esper Gifts is with Connive and Concoct, our Discovery Dispersal, our Unmoored Egos, and our Mission Briefing. And I'll see you guys there. All right, everyone, welcome to round number 1. Let's resize some windows here. We've won the die roll, so we will definitely go first. Oh, wow. All right, well, this hand has a lot of expensive stuff. We need a land and or early interaction. On the play, I think we're just supposed to keep this. There's a good chance we just get run over, but I don't really think that we can mulligan hands that have, this many things that are good against a variety of different matchups. So we'll keep. We would like to draw both like a Serum Visions would be great, where we can top like a land and a spell. All right. There's an Elvish Mystic. I think we will just start off by getting a Hallowed Fountain, because we definitely need double white. And this deck only plays blue mana. It does not play a white-black land. All right, perfect. The Path to Exile is pretty much exactly what we want, just some sort of early interaction. Our opponent's most likely on Elves. We actually might be casting the front half of this Connive and Concoct in this matchup, which is kind of funny. But I think here also we are just going to go ahead and get another white land, because we definitely want to be able to cast our Day of Judgments. All right, the opponent plays a Heritage Druid. All right, and a Dwinnen's Elite. I think what I'm going to do here is take the opportunity to just go ahead and path the Heritage Druid here, because that way the Dwinnen's Elite will not be able to tap for mana this turn, which is, I think, exactly what I'm going to do, because this will hopefully put our opponent back a whole turn. And we'll go ahead and get the other Hallowed Fountain. We do need a land here. All right, we drew a Serum Visions, which is fine. We will hopefully top a land with this. All right, we drew a Collective Brutality and, ooh boy, Fatal Push. Yeah, we don't want either of these. All right, so we do have to draw a land next turn in order to get off our Day of Judgment. All right, our opponent has the Heritage Druid, so now they get to tap this so they have 3, 4, 5 mana this turn. So there's 3. All right, they get an Elvish Visionary, which lets them draw a card. They can currently produce 4 mana or 3 mana. Coiling Oracle, that's interesting. I have honestly no idea what's happening. Coiling Oracle is one of my favorite Magic cards, though, so big fan of that. We still need another elf to do anything. Snake Elf Druid, what does this say? Tap 3 elves you control. Huh. Okay. Well, our opponent is their whole hand empty. Oh, of course we drew our tap land. Wow. All right, well, we'll just pass, and our opponent will be able to hit us for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 damage, but at least we're not dead. They can search for a land off the Windswept Heath, but if they draw a Lord here, we're dead. If they don't draw a Lord, then we probably just win the game. I don't know. We only have 3 tap lands in our deck, and we, of course, drew one of them right there. We definitely had to play or fetch for our Hallowed Fountains there, because, as you see, like, if we draw a random land off the top, it's not necessarily going to produce white mana. But it looks like our opponent did whiff on it. Kind of. I don't know what's happening. Our opponent just didn't feel like getting in for full damage. Maybe are they going to like draw a bunch of cards here or something? No? I don't know why our opponent didn't attack with more stuff, but okay. I mean, sure, we'll just Day of Judgment them. And they concede to it. Okay, sure, whatever. New, modern, just okay, just concede to whatever. All right. So in this matchup, I don't really like Torrential Gear Hulk. It costs way too much. It does look like our opponent is mostly green, so like Iona's probably fine, but it's really Elish Dorn that we want. So maybe I kind of want to cut those two just for more things that do stuff. This Discovery Dispersal is also a little bit slow. We don't really have cards in this matchup that matter tremendously. Like I guess Vendilion Click can block relatively well, and can take something out of our opponent's hand maybe. So maybe if we cut these 3 and bring in like the Vendilion Click and a couple Duresses, which can take chords and stuff like that in case our opponent is on some sort of combo plan. Maybe just do it like that. We're basically on like, Wrath of God or opponent or bust here. Actually, this hand's great. This hand theoretically can turn 3 Wrath of God, so we'll definitely keep that. We do need to draw a white land. But we can turn 2 Talisman with a Serum Visions on top of it. So that's always exciting. We can also Collected Brutality something on turn 2. So we'll definitely play this Colonnade turn 1 and pass. I think if we draw a land next turn, we will probably just Collected Brutality our opponent. Especially if they play a Lord here. No, just an Elvish Visionary. All right, so that makes me less likely to want to Collected Brutality here. I think this just makes me want to just try to Wrath on turn 3. All right, perfect. So we drew even this. So this will let us get a white land here. Then we can play the Talisman, and then we can cast the Serum Visions here. It looks like we probably just want another land here, so we'll just bottom both of these. Pass the turn, and then next turn we'll just Wrath of God, and hopefully that's good enough. All right, that's good. Good. We don't want our opponent to be able to chord for anything here. Yeah, it looks like our opponent's not going to be able to chord for anything. Great. All right, and we even drew the island so that we don't have to take damage off of this. Just cast the Wrath of God. Wow, the opponent had a Swan Song. Jeez, all right. Well, opponent can't attack through the bird. Oh, it's the Cloudstone Curio version of Elves. That's cool. I like Cloudstone Curio. All right. So now we definitely need to kill this Heritage Druid. So next turn we'll Collective Brutality with the killing the Heritage Druid and pitching something. Probably just pitching the Teferi, honestly. We'll do 2 modes, kill the thing, look at your hand. Look at your hand, kill the Heritage Druid, go this one and that one, I guess, and discard this Teferi. The opponent has another Swan Song. Okay. Sure, so we got a second bird now. We will play this Watery Grave tapped, And then during our opponent's upkeep, I guess we'll go ahead and path their Heritage Druid because they need the Heritage Druid really to go off. All right, so we'll, during our opponent's upkeep, path the Heritage Druid. So our opponent can definitely draw some cards here by bouncing Elvish Visionaries if they draw a elf, but they're not going to be able to produce infinite mana. Okay, so there's the Dwynen's Elite, and then they get to make a 1/1, bounce a couple Elvish Visionaries, and draw 2 cards this turn, it looks like. But they're not going to be able to create infinite mana. So then if we draw a land, we can Snapcaster Wrath. Now, in case people don't know, what our opponent's trying to do with Cloudstone Curio is draw infinite cards with Elvish Visionary, what's the card called? One of the 2/2 ones that with the Vigilance. Oh, it looks like they did draw the Heritage Druid, so they're really close to being able to go off completely here. All right, so they get 2 triggers here. They can bring back 2 Elvish Visionaries. Oh, wow, and they're going to get to draw quite a few cards here. So I guess the Dwynen's Elite also lets them go off. Partially. They still don't have the Vigilance Untapper one. If they had the Vigilance Untapper one, that would make it... Yeah. So we'll let our opponent do their thing here, and we'll see what happens. All right, everyone, welcome to Sideboarding. We figured out what our opponent was trying. Our opponent basically eventually assembled the combo and was going to kill us. So bringing in Spell Quellers, because now we know what our opponent's doing. We could also bring on Unmoored Ego, because this is actually kind of a matchup where those cards can just shut down the opponent. We do have some cuts. I think I'm just going to get rid of this Connive and Concoct. We're just going to be on the Gifts plan here. We also might be able to just cut, like, even Vendilion Click. The Duresses seem very good. Cut the Secure the Wastes. We're just very much in on this combo. We'll cut the Teferi, cut a Jace. We're just looking to do like these things and race our opponent to the spot and search for his Kanta. All right. This hand does not have white mana. That could potentially be very problematic. It does have Unmoored Ego, though, so our opponent can't really combo off if we have Unmoored Ego. So I guess we'll keep it, and we hope to draw white mana. Opponent is mulliganing, which is good for us. Down to 6, put a card on top. Oh, there's a Flooded Strand. That's great. We can go ahead and get a tap land with that. All right, there's the Cavern of Souls. We'll see what our opponent plays here. All right, they get a Nettle Sentinel going. Oh, there's a Heritage Druid. Okay. Opponent might be able to just kind of go off here. See if they play a Cloudstone Curio. If they do, we could potentially be in some trouble here. Ooh, they play a Choke. All right. All right, fancy. We'll go ahead and get a Plains here. Sure. All right, so our opponent's got Choke. There's Collective Brutality. We'll just play our Swamp here. And I think we're just going to be on Spell Queller here because our opponent looks like they kind of, put everything on the battlefield. So we'll see what happens here. We might be able to eat something with a Spell Queller. Yeah, it looks like our opponent's just going to combat here. Hopefully they attack with everything. Yeah, all right. And we'll just go ahead and play the Spell Queller and block the Nettle Sentinel. All right, cool. And our opponent's just passing here. Drew another Unmoored Ego. I think I will just play this island because it seems unlikely that holding it is any better than this. We'll make our opponent reveal their hand, and we'll try to kill something. So we'll try to kill this Heritage Druid, and we will discard... let's discard an Unmoored Ego. Probably are not going to cast both of them. Okay, so our opponent just has Nettle Sentinel, Llanowar Elves, and Dwynen's Elite in hand. Not a super threatening hand. Certainly not one that beats us. We'll even attack in with a Spell Queller here because our opponent is not going to block. All right, there's the Elvish Visionary, so we still know what our opponent's hand is. They might just play out a Llanowar Elves here or a Nettle Sentinel. Okay, they play out a Llanowar Elves. You know, 2 of the 3 cards on our opponent's hand. There's a Hallowed Fountain. Might as well just play it. That way we can hold up Cryptic Command. We can even tap the Choke at the end of the turn or something like that. Yeah, Gladstone Curio. All right, so we'll counter this and return the Choke to our opponent's hand. All right, so there's the Nettle Sentinel. Opponent gets in with the Elvish Visionary. That's fine. We get to at least untap with our things, and then we can use this Unmoored Ego to name Choke, just so we don't get choked out of the game. All right, so we get one choke out of our opponent's hand. Our opponent has a bunch of counter spells, Unified Will and Swan Songs. Our opponent has Gladstone Curio, Dwynen's Elite, but no real payoff card. So our opponent can do some stuff next turn, but not like a lot of stuff. All right. And we'll pass the turn because we want to be able to block here, I guess. So there's the Gladstone Curio. Next turn we can main phase the Mission Briefing, hoping to hit a spell that, like a Wrath. And if we don't hit the Wrath, we can just name Cryptic Command or Collective Brutality to kill something, which I kind of like. All right, there's a Talisman of Progress. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll just cast this Mission Briefing. Okay, and our opponent just concedes to that. So I guess we were going to name an Unmoored Ego and get rid of one of their combo pieces, and from there they were just going to concede. I don't think we were going to actually do that. I don't really know how to play against this Gladstone Curio Elves deck. I've played with the deck, but I guess I just don't have enough reps with or against it to play against it right. Hope I wasn't, too bad with my play here, but yeah. Anyway, we're 1-0. Moving on. All right, everyone, welcome to round number 2. This is a very interesting hand. It has lands and a Jace plus interaction, but it also has an Elesh Norn in hand. Usually any hand that has an Elesh Norn in it is kind of a mulligan right off the bat because it's a 7-card hand, but with the Jace and the Collective Brutalities in this deck, it's probably just a keep. I'm just going to keep this hand, and it might be like last match where it just so happens to be the right half of the deck. It could be the wrong half of the deck. We could just lose, like if our opponent's on Tron or something. Okay, whether our opponent with plains pass is a good sign for us. That means that we are not under a lot of pressure. We can play our lands tapped and hopefully resolve a Jace. Maybe humans. Okay, so it is humans. I'm guessing it's like a mono white humans list though. No, I guess not. They just had a slow start for humans. Okay, our opponent gets to take our Path to Exile with their freebooter. All right, we drew a Colonnade for the turn. It's probably just worth playing that Colonnade. Yeah, we'll just play the Colonnade tapped. Our opponent knows the rest of our hand, and concealing that information is probably less valuable than the fact that we get to play our tap land now. So I'm not terribly unhappy with the way that that has so far worked out. See what our opponent does here. It looks like they're going to cast a the 3/3 flyer guy. Yeah, the Mantis Rider. There it is. And they're going to get in for 4 damage here. Sure. All right, so we would like to draw some interaction off the top. We have quite a few in our deck. Serum Visions is not specifically a piece of interaction, but it might be in the future. Let's see, that's probably not... Well, we can cast Jace next turn and then cast this the following turn, which might be too late, but I think it's better than any other plan that we have right now. So we can bottom that, top the Connive and Concoct, draw the Connive and Concoct. Oh, there's Unburial Rites. I guess we'll bottom both of these. Play the Watery Grave tapped. We can also just cast the Connive next turn to take control of the Kitesail Freebooter, which isn't also, you know, a terrible play, or whatever card our opponent plays this turn. Okay, Thalia makes everything a little bit more difficult. Actually, a lot more difficult. So we need to draw like a Fatal Push this turn, or something like that. Not sure what card our opponent's going to take here. It's either, I mean, either the Connive or the Jace. So we have Push, Path, Collective Brutality's not great, but it's fine, I guess. Because if we draw Push, we can push the Freebooter, Path the Mantis Rider here. All right, we drew Creeping Tar Pit. So next turn we're taking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I guess if we draw Wrath off the top, we might be able to survive. So I guess we will just pass and hope to draw a Wrath, and maybe our opponent won't have a way to interact with it, or a way to kill us this turn. Okay, so our opponent plays Meddling Mage. He'll probably name Supreme Verdict, which will cut our outs to just 2, which will be Wrath of God and Day of Judgment. No, they just play it on Jace. Interesting. Okay. So we have 4 outs from this point. Plus Cryptic Command will buy us a whole turn. And we do not hit. So let's see. We can block here and take 5, 6, 7, and we're at 5. So yep, we are dead. All right, well, our main board plan against humans is usually pretty good. Post board, we can bring in a Vendilion Click, which I like because it blocks relatively well and is good against our opponent's vials. And I usually like bringing in one Stony Silence. I won't bring in two, but they have the vials, which it shuts off, and that's like the best cards against us usually. We can cut a Torrential Gear Hulk and a Discovery Dispersal. That card doesn't do very much in this matchup, and that combo there is meant for more like the longer games anyway. I think we will just go like that and submit. We're looking to get Elish Norn into play very quickly. We can also usually cut the Iona. Maybe we do that. Cut the Iona, bring in like 2 Spell Quellers, and cut the Teferi. Do it like that real quick. Spell Queller's actually very good at blocking a lot of our opponent's creatures. As you saw that game, they had a bunch of 2/1s and 2/2s. Our opponent will unfortunately bring in probably some number of Sin Collectors, which is one of their best cards against us, especially with us being a 1-card combo with Gifts Ungiven. If they can name that one card, makes our deck really anemic. And this is also the kind of matchup that makes me want to play more Talismans. Because I think in general, if we can turn 3 gifts, we are definitely fine. But if we have to turn 4 gifts, it's sometimes a little bit too late. This is a hand that has the Elish Norn in it and not enough lands to really do what we want. So I think it's just a mulligan. I think this hand's quite a bit better. Like a significant amount better. So we'll keep this one. Wrath of God's a very good card to leave on top of our library, which will let us just start off with this Watery Grave tapped. And then next turn we can search for basic planes with the Flooded Strand to cast the Search for Azcanta. Okay, so our opponent doesn't have a Vial start, which is great for us. You can't cast Vial off of an Ancient Ziggurat. Alright, so we drew the Ancient, or the Wrath of God, rather. There's very few things here that I'm going to want to path this turn specifically. I think the Search for Azcanta setting us up for a little bit of a later, a late game, and possibly just flipping over the combo is really strong. Making sure that we're not going to draw bad cards like Elish Norn, or something else like that. And our opponent's on a slower start too, which is good. They only have the 1 land. So hopefully we can leverage that to our advantage here. Of course, it's right over top of it. All right, so a Talisman. This Talisman actually would let us cast Path, so I think we'll just keep it on top of our library. We can play this Polluted Delta tapped, or play the Polluted Delta and fetch a tap land and use our Talisman here if we need it, because we're going to hopefully just cast the Wrath of God next turn. Opponent does draw a land for the turn, so our opponent's hand is entirely gas. Okay, and there's a Thalia. So the greedy play here would be to not use the path on the Thalia and to just try to find a land with this as content. I think we're just going to go ahead and do that. It's definitely a little bit on the greedier side, but I think it's probably fine enough where we'll just go ahead and try to make that play. We have quite a few lands in our deck, and even if we don't hit, we still have path for the next turn. So we want to just top a land here. Serum Vision's in the graveyard. Yes, let's put that in the graveyard. All right, we do hit the Watery Grave, so that's good. So we'll get to now cast the Wrath of God and make our opponent start rebuilding. Opponent drew another land for the turn, which is good. So one of the reasons I didn't want to path this because I knew that they were a little bit bottlenecked on mana, and I didn't want to just hand them another land. All right, so they're going to get to play their Mantis Rider here and take us down to 6, which is, like 6 is not where I want to be in this matchup, but at least we have a very clean answer to it. Let's put a land in the graveyard. All right, there's Elish Norn. So we're a couple of lands away from casting that, but it's not incredibly far away. Let's draw a couple. Oh, we drew a bunch of good cards here. All right, let's put back Verdict, and we'll put Supreme Verdict on top of that. So we can path the Mantis Rider here so that we're not just dead to a copy of a Mantis Rider. That's what, hopefully our opponent just goes Phantasmal Image to copy Mantis Rider here, and we can blow it up with the Path to Exile, and then they lose their Phantasmal Image also. That would be like a super greedy play that our opponent might make. No, okay, they just have another one. White, red, blue. So they have another Mantis Rider. Sure. All right, so our opponent moves to combat. They should be attacking me with both. Yep. And we'll go ahead and path one. Go down to 3 here. All right. So one thing we can do here is we can path our opponent's Mantis Rider now so that we can turn on Delirium. Or turn on Search for Escanta. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So we'll path it here, main phase. Because we want the Verdict that's on top of our opponent's, on top of our library. And then hopefully we can Jace Brainstorm and then cast the Elish Norn next turn. No, and we would like to transform the Search for Escanta. All right, so now let's draw some cards here. All right, we drew Gifts and Elish Norn. All right, so let's put Elish Norn on top of our library. And we'll go and cast this Talisman. And then we don't want to activate Escanta because we can't actually draw our Elish Norn off of it, which is kind of silly. All right, that's a Thalia. That's fine. Thalia dies to Elish Norn. All right, and that's a freebooter. So the same thing applies here. So our opponent can just take, whatever card they want here. We will just go ahead and cast our Elish Norn next turn. And probably Fate Seal our opponent to make sure that they're not going to draw a card that gets them out of this. And I'm not super worried about, because our opponent knew about the Elish Norn from last game because we had it in our hand. So we'll just go ahead and just cast that main phase, I guess. And then we will look at the top card of our opponent's library, which is a Thalia. Put it on the bottom. No. You can have the Thalia. And we'll pass the turn. Okay, our opponent has a Militia Bugler, which is a 0/1. All right, and they do find a Sin Collector, which is, as I said, one of the better cards against us. All right, there's a Gifts Ungiven, which is good for us. We can go ahead and Brainstorm with Jace, and we'll put back Island, Serum Visions, play the island. We can attack our opponent here with the Elish Norn. And then we can gifts for a pile that is hard for our opponent to interact with. Okay, our opponent's just chumping here. That's fine. All right, so there's the Sin Collector. We'll go ahead and cast this Gifts Ungiven. We'll just get some cards and stuff that are hard for our opponent to deal with. We'll get like Vendilion Click, Snapcaster Mage. Oh, I guess actually we can cast Cryptic with this. So we can just Cryptic the Sin Collector and draw a card or something. We'll do Cryptic Command. Our opponent just concedes. That's fine. Perfect. So game 3, I kind of like our plan here. Stony Silence is a little bit worse on the draw, but I mean, none of these cards really are here any good, so maybe we're just kind of forced into that. Maybe we can cut a Jace for another Spell Queller here. So that way we have at least a couple of ways to block and interact. Our opponent most likely will be boarding back in their Reflector Mages. Oh gosh, this hand's just 6 lands and a Cryptic. I don't think we can keep that. It doesn't have a quick win. It doesn't have any real interaction. Yeah, all right. It's not great. That makes it a little bit better. Our Horizon Canopy into Champion is a good start for our opponent. We will go ahead, I guess, and just start off with a Polluted Delta. We do need to get white mana, so we'll get white mana there. And then we can Fatal Push our opponent next turn and maybe try to set up from there. Okay, so there's Champion of the Parish. That's fine. Yep, we'll take our lumps here. Oh, wow, our opponent has a really aggressive Champion of the Parish start. All right, so we are going to take 3 here. Our best draw off the top would be Path to Exile. So I guess I'm getting a little punished here for not leading on the Swamp, but we do need the double white mana for the late game. Drew a Verdict. All right. Well, at least we're not going to take like an absurd amount of damage here, but we still could take a lot. If our opponent has Thalia's Lieutenant plus another 1-drop, it could be really bad for us. We're taking at least 3 here. Oh, okay, so this actually isn't too bad because our hand's super redundant. So we'll go ahead and we'll push this Champion. But we're going to take at least 5 damage here. Oof, actually that's pretty bad. So we do need to draw like a Collective Brutality or something off the top here. And then we need a land the following turn. So we need to draw like Collective Brutality land. This is a really fast start from our opponent, and there's very few decks in Modern that are playing a fair strategy that would be able to fight through this. So if we can get through this, I'll be really excited. Taking 5 here, down to 11. All right, we drew the land, so we are set up for next turn in the Verdict, but the question is whether or not our opponent can kill us here. So our opponent needs to do us less than 10 damage, and then we also need to fade the Mantis Riders for the rest of the game. Because right now they're dealing 6 damage, so they need to play 7, 8, 9, 10. If they play 2 humans, they beat us. If they play a single Thalia's Lieutenant, they beat us. If they play Mantis Rider, they beat us. Also, if they copy Kitesail Freebooter, they also probably beat us. And the fact that they're still thinking is probably good for us. If they play Meddling Mage, then we have to draw Day of Judgment. or Cryptic Command off the top, which isn't particularly exciting for us. This is Athalia's Lieutenant. They were just slow rolling us. I'm going to be very upset. Oh, it's Athalia. Okay, so Athalia also beats us. We'll go ahead and search here, but there's really, I don't even see an out to that. Yeah. All right. We're just dead. Good game, opponent. We'll be on to round 3. All right, everyone. We are 1-1 after beating Cloudstone Curio Elves and losing to humans. This is a great hand. We will definitely keep it. We don't even take too much damage off of our lands. See, our opponent's playing a forest deck, which is usually good. General, you want to see forest against playing as a control deck. And generally, you just want to push the bird off the cliff. We don't really know what our opponent's playing, but it's not humans, so I like pushing Noble Hierarch in every matchup that's not humans. Some sort of Bant deck. Oh, Infect. Duh. Okay. Well, I think at this point, we're going to try to race our opponent to Elesh Norn. So we'll see if that works. See if our opponent can kill us between this combat step and next combat step. All right, it's looking good for us. All right, so we'll see if our opponent goes for the kill. If they don't go for the kill, which a lot of the times the Infect opponent will not because they're scared of something that Control could have. All right, the pump's fine. All right, now I'm basically just going to kind of sit here for a second and see if our opponent, make it seem like we're going to plan on interacting with our opponent. We're not going to interact with our opponent, but we're just going to sit here for a second. Make it seem like that's fine. All right, cool. And then we take damage, and then unless our opponent has Spell Pierce, they can't win. Because we'll just get Elesh Norn, and then that's the game. Elesh Norn just kills every single thing that they have. All right, so we'll get Elesh Norn and Unburial Rites. Say done, that's okay. Untap. Go to here, and our opponent concedes to it. Great. So our opponent most likely had the win in their hand. They double-checked, triple-checked, thought about it. We're just like, huh? If we go for it and they have path, we lose. We just get blown out. Not going to do it. And then we just beat our opponent because we play a combo control deck. All right, so that was awesome. That was literally just like stone cold perfect. Duress is great. Collective Brutality is great. Path's great. These verdicts are great. Once again, we'll take out some of these slow things in our deck. This. Probably the Iona also. The Elesh Norn is basically just game over against our opponent's deck. And like even the Cryptic Command's like really slow. The Connive is kind of interesting as like a removal spell to take their poison generator, but also probably a little slow. So we'll take a couple of flyers because flyers are really good in the matchup and bring them in. All right, what does this hand do? Yeesh. Not a lot. I mean, I guess it's got a removal spell, and it's got a Serum Visions and a Verdict. All right, we'll keep it. Our best draw would actually probably be Elesh Norn, as funny as that is. All right, so we drew a Flooded Strand. We'll go ahead and get blue-black here, and yeah, blue-black, and cast the Serum Visions because we want the black for the Unburial Rites and the Collective Brutality. And our life total isn't as relevant in this matchup as it is in others. Our opponent can kill us with regular damage. It looks like they are. They're just going to kill us with regular damage. Interesting. All right, we drew Fatal Push, which is good. So Spell Queller and Path to Exile. They're both great. I think missing a land drop is fine, potentially. So we'll just go ahead and pass. Our opponent gets the Dryad Arbor. Okay, and they just play a Blighted Agent. That's fine. So we will we'll go ahead and get a Plains with this. And I think we're just going to go ahead and Collective Brutality. Choose our opponent, choose this Blighted Agent, discard this Unburial Rights, take... Oh, geez. Opponent has a lot of good stuff. So next turn, our opponent can go Misty, Might, become Immense. So I think we actually just have to take the Might. And then try to double spell to kill our opponent next turn, maybe. We could also just take the Become Immense. And that way they have to go 4, 8. Yeah, they can't. Oh, they can. That's 8. 4, 8. So that's 9 damage. We would take 9 poison, but then we'd be able to take them both off the table. Or if we take the Might, then they can go 3, 4. Yeah, I think they theoretically could win either way. So I guess we just have to take the Become Immense because we know that's the way that they can't kill us next turn with the Dryad Arbor, or all in one turn, or with the Inkmoth Nexus. Like, there's a great example. All right, so there's a Viridian Corruptor. That's fine. All right, we draw Drowned Catacombs. We will go ahead and just get this Hallowed Fountain tapped here. We don't want to get blown out by something weird our opponent's playing, like a Shadow of Doubt or something, you know, super strange like that. And we have 2 removal spells here, so we most likely won't die. I'm definitely going to try to target that Inkmoth Nexus post-combat with some sort of spells, or some sort of spell at least. That's fine. We'll take 3 poison damage, and then you always want to interact with Infect outside of combat. So we'll go ahead and attempt to path it. We know our opponent has Vines. Okay, so our opponent casts the Vines targeting it, and then we will push it. Okay, and then that's pushed. Great. And then we'll just Catacombs Verdict. And then hopefully draw an untapped land for this Teferi or something, some sort of action. Okay. All right, cool. We did draw action for it. So we know our opponent actually has a Might of Old Krosa in the hand, so they can actually kill the Noble Hierarch, which is really funny. So we do have to bounce this bounce this Noble Hierarch if we don't want the Teferi to die. Conversely, it might be fine if we just let the Noble Hierarch kill the Teferi, but I'd rather them have to use a couple of spells to save it. Because we know that they have... Okay, yeah, I was going to say that we knew that they have Might of Old Krosa in hand, which would be able to pump the card enough to kill the Teferi, but by bouncing it, you know, they would have to have another spell to protect it and then kill the Teferi. It's all right. We got there. All right, everyone, welcome to round 3. This is a heck of a hand. This is like a classic control hand with Esper colors. Our opponent mulliganed. We get a couple of draws. We'll find lands. We'll keep it. This hand has all kinds of interaction. It looks like our opponent's got a Merfolk on their thing, so I'm putting them on Merfolk. I don't know if that's right or wrong. We have 2 removal spells, and no, okay, it's not right. All right. Opponent just plays Swamp and passes, which is good, because if they would have taken our Serum Visions, it potentially could have gone very poorly. But we did draw another Serum Visions. None of those are lands. Wow. All right, so we'll bottom a couple and hope to hit a land next turn. We have 2 shots at a land. If we do hit a land, we'll probably cast this Discovery Dispersal. I don't know what our opponent's doing, but it's really cool, whatever it is. I think now that they have the Smuggler's Copter, I'd want to push it off a hill if possible. Let's just bottom the push, top the Polluted Delta, and play the Swamp. So that way we know we're hitting the land drop next turn, and then also we will hopefully be able to set one up for the following turn. Okay, so our opponent has Gifted Aetherborn, and we can kill the Smuggler's Copter. It looks like our opponent's playing Mono Black Devotion. But this will save us 3 life and prevent our opponent from getting to do bad things with their Smuggler's Copter by discarding some bad cards in the matchup. Like they probably have like Fatal Pushes and stuff like that in their hand, which would be, you know, ideal. Let's go ahead and shock fetch here, or fetch shock, and then cast this Discovery Dispersal. We want to cast Discovery. So we will Surveil 2 and then draw a card. We want to land. So we will put a non-land on the bottom and a land on top, and then draw a card. Let's just put them both in our graveyard, I guess. All right, we did draw a land. Good. All right, so we have Supreme Verdict up for next turn. We can path something that, you know, could potentially be bad for us. We can also just, if our opponent overcommits to the board, just not do anything, which I'm also a fan of. But if our opponent plays something like a Relentless Dead or something like that, that Wrathing isn't particularly good against, we might just path it and then Wrath later. Because we also have, like, you know, Cryptic Command and some other stuff that we can do stuff with. And I'm not going to do it now. Taking 2 is fine. We can also just, you know, play Jace and bounce the card for huge tempo advantage if our opponent doesn't do anything here. Like if they have like Gatekeepers of Malakir in their hand that they don't want to play out. No, Liliana the Last Hope. Okay, so that is like a real potential problem. And that is something that we eventually have to deal with. All right. So our opponent's stuck on lands. That means I don't really want to path our opponent, but I think I am going to. And the reason why is that way we can just go ahead and resolve this Jace next turn, and then our opponent might overcommit to the board, and then we can Verdict later. All right, there's a Mission Briefing, which is good with all the other cards we have in our deck here. Go ahead and get the Hallowed Fountain. We do need the second white source. Go ahead and play the Jace, and we will Brainstorm here. Field of Ruin, Serum Visions. All right, so we definitely don't want the Serum Visions, Field of Ruin probably as our worst cards. Well, let's see our opponent has like a Thoughtseize effect. What's the worst card, or the card that we don't want them to see? It's probably Supreme Verdict, so we'll do something like this. This only gets punished really bad if they have Field of Ruin, which they might have, but I don't know what would compel them to Field of Ruin this specific turn. Oh, okay, so our opponent just Phyrexian Obliterator and passes. That's fine. I think we're just going to go ahead and get Iona and name black cards at some point, and then just maybe take a couple of hits from this Obliterator. Oh, we should probably just bounce that, shouldn't we? That's how this works. Using our Planeswalkers is good. There we go. Key. For those who were wondering, I totally forgot to use Jace there. I was just like, oh, we'll just play this land and pass, and then we'll get Iona, and then that'll be the game. But that's not really how this works. So hopefully our opponent just plays Obliterator here again. That would be beyond ideal. And then we can just Gifts for Iona, and then our opponent's playing Mono Black. That's, I believe, the game. Oh, okay, our opponent goes with the Thoughtseize, so we'll definitely cast this now, getting the Iona. Alright, so we got Iona, Shield of Emeria, and Unburial Rites. would like to put those 2 cards in the graveyard. All right, now your Thoughtseize can resolve. Well, actually, we'll go ahead and fetch with this Polluted Delta here. Get a Watery Grave. All right, now we can have 6. And we'll be able to race a Liliana emblem with our Iona. I believe they also did that already. Yeah, that was the first thing they did. So that's why it's at 6 now. And it ultimates at 7. So next turn they can take it up to 7, but then we can just attack it for 7 and kill it. And nothing our opponent takes here is relevant, really. None of these cards are what's going to kill them. What's going to kill them is the Unburial Rites in their graveyard. Opponent takes the Mission Briefing, which is like the Snapcaster Mage, so I guess, you know, that kind of makes sense to me, at least. Sure. And then they pass the turn here. We will just go ahead and Unburial Rites the Iona. We'll name black. Alright, so our opponent can't cast black spells. We will bounce the Gifted Aetherborn, cast a Serum Visions, and then fight the Liliana. Are either of these cards relevant? Probably not. I guess the more relevant would be the Flooded Strand, so we'll just go ahead and... Or the land, I guess. Our opponent just concedes. Good. I was going to say, I was like, at this point, it's like, I don't really know what our opponent could do, but that's fine. So our opponent most definitely is going to be bringing in Leyline of the Voids, or at least almost specifically Leyline of the Voids. If they only have Nile Spell Bombs, then the Connive and Concocts are fine. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do here is probably leave in the Connive and Concocts and the Iona, but I'm probably game 2 going to cut the Gifts Unburial Rites package. And this is kind of why I like this deck a lot, is because we have the ability to play a very fair deck without, you know, going super far into that. We can just play Vanillion Click, some Duresses, and a couple of Spell Quellers, and just try to, like, fair our opponent out of this game, which is, I think, what we're going to try to do here. We're going to keep in the Snapcaster Mages and the Mission Briefings in case our opponent doesn't have the effect, or we can, like, you know, Cryptic Command and then use them later. But I'm not going to 100% board out like they don't have it. And these cards, the Connive and Concoct, still have some relevant text in this matchup. And this hand's great, so we'll keep it. Opponent looks like they might be mulliganing relatively aggressively for their Leyline. Yep, there's the Leyline. 2 Leylines. Perfect. So that's exactly you know, what I was talking about, is that the opponent probably is keeping a bad hand because of the Leylines. Let's just go ahead and cast the Duress here, I guess. I mean, it's probably not going to hit anything, but we'll see. No, okay, so I just kept 4 lands and 2 Leylines. Sure, all right. So the Search for Azcanta, the Snapcaster Mage in our hand aren't doing terribly too much, but our opponent isn't actually doing anything, so we'll see. All right, there's the Swamp. What did our opponent draw? Our opponent drew a Bloodghast. That's actually a really good one. We can go ahead and use this, I guess, to start smoothing out our draws. So we don't draw cards that we don't want to draw at the time. But killing Bloodghast actually might be kind of difficult. I didn't really think of Bloodghast, and we might want to bring in a couple of surgical extractions for them because they are really tough to beat. One of the ways we can beat them is just to play a Spell Queller, and then they can never attack through it unless they kill it. Oh, cool. Our opponent actually just played the Gatekeeper of Malakir. That's nice. Jace. I think we are interested in a land before Jace, so we'll put that in the graveyard. We can... just kill the Gatekeeper, I guess, with this Collective Brutality and play a Flooded Strand. That's fine. Just to make sure we have double white for a Day Judgment. Okay, our opponent has their own Collective Brutality. That's fine. We'll just go ahead and get a white land here and pass the turn. They can take either Day of Judgment or Collective Brutality. But our opponent just has one card in hand, which is a Bloodstained Mire, like 90% sure. So think we're doing okay for now. We'll be at 13 here. Where's Toby?
Downstairs.
He went back. Okay, and our opponent does play the Bloodstained Mire. We'd like a land here. No, that's actually a great draw. That thing will block later on. And we'll just pass the turn here. We can use the Spell Queller to block. Our opponent inquisitioning us before combat doesn't really make sense because now we just have the blocker too. I mean, I guess unless our opponent wasn't interested in preventing us from, I don't know. I would have attacked first, played the Queller, and then done that to get rid of the Collective Brutality or something like that. Gear Hulk. Yeah, let's put Gear Hulk in the graveyard. That's fine. All right, we drew a Talisman, which is kind of like a land. Do we want to trade 2 damage for 2 damage here? Probably not. I think we're favored if this game goes long. So. Do we want a Verdict? Yeah, let's put the Verdict in the graveyard. It's not very good right now. All right, we have a Cryptic Command. That's very good. I think, we're going to continue to not trade damage for damage yet. So it continues to pass, which is fine with us. The more cards we get in our hand, the better off I think we are. At this point, I think we can just go ahead and get the Snapcaster Mage into play and start attacking with it because our opponent currently can't block. Let's not put that in the graveyard. Let's draw a second Colonnade because that's a real way that we can win this game. And then I think pretty soon we can start trading 4 damage for 2 damage with our opponent. I think we've drawn enough cards and our opponent doesn't seem to be drawing very much. That matters. Okay, it looks like our opponent drew something relevant. Phyrexian Obliterator. Let us counter that card and draw a card. All right, we drew a land. So now we can actually just start kind of racing our opponent here, which I'm very much willing to do. Put that in our graveyard. We don't need lands anymore. All right, Mission Briefing is really bad. But we knew that, when we were boarding. I even kind of mentioned the fact that that we weren't particularly interested in in making, correct boarding decisions on our opponent keeping ley lines, because it was like, if they bring ley lines in, then it's bad in general. All right, so we'll escalate 2 modes here. We'll have our opponent reveal their hand to make sure they don't have something crazy good in their hand, and we'll have our opponent lose life here, because that basically means that they're dead here next turn. All right, our opponent just has swamp in hand, sure. So we're at 15, our opponent's at 6, and they're dead to 2 of our 3 attackers. All right, perfect. And we're 3-1. We've cashed the league, and we're going to try to 4-1 it. All right, everyone, welcome to the 4th and final match. We're on the draw, or the 5th and final match. I always say that. I think, like, you can go back and look how many videos I've said 4th and final match. It's probably, like, more than 5. All right, this hand doesn't really do anything. I've been very unimpressed with this Gear Hulk. Very unimpressed. All right, we'll keep this hand. That's fine. Elish Dord is going to the bottom. This is one of the decks that I thought gained tremendously by the Scry, the new Scry rule, where it was being able to Scry something like that to the. Of course, I say that. It's like, being able to Scry one of our fatties to the bottom is really, helpful in a lot of matchups. And then, of course, that happens. All right, we're going to shock here because we need all kinds of colored mana and to draw lands. So bottom a couple that are of the non-lands, pass the turn. There's a chance that this deck wants at least 1 more land. I'm only playing 23 lands with the 2 mana rocks because the deck's kind of trying to hit 4 mana and then like 5 mana, but not really go above 6 or 7 mana. But unfortunately, this hand does not seem to be cooperating very well for that. Maybe our opponent's on like Abzan or something with the new Assassin's Trophy, which has got to be an awful matchup for us. Okay, Voice of Resurgence is something that we theoretically can beat. That's good. We have a path. Yeah, let's go ahead and path it here. And then we can get a black source with this Polluted Delta, and then we can get a white source with the Field of Ruin. Or we can snap path next turn, one of those 2 things. Opponent might be on like Vizier combo. The Full Art Forest and the Guru Art Plains is a little protection from blue, return a forest, untap target creature. Okay, so the opponent can ramp himself with this. Or hit their self with this. Okay, so they're untapping the Scrib Ranger, which means they don't have any lands in hand. All right, so they are probably the Recruiter deck. We might be able to do like a full blowout next turn with the Snapcaster Mage blocking the Duskwatch Recruiter and then killing something else. Or we could just draw Fatal Push. I guess that works too. Yeah, we could be greedy and do the Snapcaster Mage. So like the least greedy play is to Snapcaster Mage Serum Visions here to make sure we hit a land next turn. Yeah, I think I'm going to do it. It's so, like, every other play that we have is so much less greedy than that, but I like the greedy play, or the less greedy play the best. Because now we know if we're going to draw a white source, and yeah, so now we can bottom these 2 because they're bad. And then, if we drew Jace next turn, we weren't really advancing ourselves in the game at all. Like, the 2 cards we put at the bottom were good to put at the bottom. And we still have the Fatal Push, which is, interaction. Our opponent looks like they're going to try to flip the Duskwatch Recruiter here, or Collected Company, one of those 2. Or they just wanted to go to combat first, okay. Yeah, there's the Collected Company, sure. All right, Finks, Birds, that's fine. All right, we drew a Island, which isn't a great draw. We can fortunately get a white mana off this. All right, so we need to do that a little different. So we need to do this. Yeah, like that. All right, cool. This will let us get a white mana. All right, so there we have the white mana, and then we need to push the Duskwatch Recruiter now so our opponent can't can't flip it next turn. There we go. All right. So now we have the Snapcaster Mage to block the Finks. Our opponent can gain infinite life, but we can beat our opponent through infinite life with Jace. So I'm fine if our opponent goes for an infinite life combo. We have Teferi and Jace to beat them. All right, so Finks, Ewit, so they get to do Ewit, Rebuy, and Company, and then attack us. So our verdict's not going to be great, but it'll be okay, I guess. All right, and we'll block the one Finks. So our opponent will be left with just Finks after this. Oh, cool, and we even drew a land. That's good. So we'll go ahead and cast the verdict. Our opponent will do some scrying and some stuff, but they'll just be left with the Finks. So our opponent has Finks and Company in hand. Or Finks on the battlefield, Company in hand, one unknown card. Oh, and they bounced a land to their hand. All right, and they've bottomed everything so far. All right, so now the Finks comes back. The opponent untaps. They play the Forest again. They have Collected Company in hand. They'll attack us for 2 here. There's a chance I should have just held the fetch there because I have the Jace and I want to shuffle back the Iona, but I think we'll be fine without it. I think the ability to possibly have the white mana is more important. Ooh, all right, so we need to set up this Brainstorm with the Jace for the Iona in order to get this Connive to work. Conniving the Knight seems bad. I think we're supposed to just take the real greedy play here and hope that we hit a path with this Jace. Yeah, we hit a path with the Jace. Cool. All right, so we'll do Jace on top. We'll do, Jace on top, Iona second below, and then we can concoct it into play next turn. All right, we have verdicts. We have the concoct the Iona into play. We have a couple of things that we can do here for the next turn. I highly doubt our opponent can kill us with some sort of combo. They might be able to, once again gain infinite life, but we can mill our opponent out or something. Okay, so our opponent can actually kill the Jace here. See if our opponent commits to the board a little bit more than just the kitchen Finks here, because this is not a particularly good verdict right now. Okay, no, so the opponent probably does have Collected Company in hand. Which means that I definitely want to just connive here and see what our opponent does. So we'll see if our opponent casts their Collected Company right now. If they don't, then we'll just... Yep, okay, so we'll put Let's see, we'll do graveyard, graveyard, graveyard. Put that into play, name green. All right, cool. The opponent can't cast their green spells now, like their Collected Company or their Court of Calling in hand. Nice. See if they can beat this Iona, which I feel like is going to be hard. Our opponent didn't get a single window there to cast their Collected Company or their Court of Calling that they have in hand. Between me flipping the Iona into the graveyard and me putting it onto the battlefield. So that's why they weren't really able to do anything there, which was cool. Next turn we can play Jace and just bounce the Kitchen Finks, and our opponent can't recast it because Iona's naming it. And then we can start attacking with the Iona and trade, like 1 damage. If our opponent can somehow deal with it, they can't cast Court of Calling. I don't know what they're trying to do here. Oh, a Walking Ballista for 4. Okay. Well, that is something that they can cast. That's a real thing. All right. We still can cast this Verdict at some point. All right, so Unburial Rites doesn't really do anything here. We can Teferi bounce the Walking Ballista. We can also Jace plus. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then our opponent can kill the Jace. So maybe we just cast Teferi and do the same thing. Okay, we did draw a land, so we will bottom that, or put the land there, and then we will just pass the turn here. I think that's the best of all of our options there. This at least is going to make our opponent spend their whole next turn killing the Teferi, basically, if they want to. They can also attack into the Iona if they tap out for everything, which I'll definitely block, and then we can Unburial Rites it. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do here. Cool. All right, so it's up to 5. If they spend all their mana on this, they can trade with the Iona. And then we'll just Unburial Rites the Iona back. Cool. All right. So we got the Walking Ballista off the table, fortunately. All right. Search for Escanta is actually pretty decent. If we draw a land off of this Teferi, we'll be able to use it. Okay, we drew a Path to Exile. That's also really good. All right, so we'll just get that back. We'll go ahead and name green again. So there's green. You can't cast green spells. Now we're just looking for Elishnorn here. Opponent can't cast green spells. Opponent is learning. Although the last time I guess I was learning, I was like, our opponent's convoking something. They're trying to cast a Walking Ballista, and that, didn't really work. Ooh, they're going to Post-Mortem Lunge and Eternal Witness. Okay, that's fine. Eternal Witness, get back, Walking Ballista. Sure. Opponent goes to combat. might as well attack. Sure, I will block the kitchen finks. That's fine. Okay, opponent has a Shalalia, whatever. I'm pathing it. That card theoretically could make things very difficult for us, so that's why I pathed it. All right, we drew a swamp for the turn, which is a pretty good draw. We were looking for a land. Okay, we drew Gifts Ungiven, which is actually just perfect. We will look at our opponent. Oh wait, not yet. We need one more land for this. Okay. Because what I was going to say is we can just get Elish Norn and try to kill our opponent, but that's fine. All right, so we'll get the Search for Azcanta here going, and then we'll cast Gifts during our opponent's turn. And we will attack with the Iona and untap these two. All right, so the opponent gets a relatively big walking ballista. That's fine. Yep. A 4 power walking ballista, and then they'll be able to deal something 4 damage. So they can kill the Teferi, which is fine. It's not, it's not ideal. But we'll just go ahead and do this now. We'll just get gifts. We'll get Elish Norn and, some other random cards that they can't beat. So we'll do Torrential Gearhulk, Elish Norn, Secure the Wastes, Path to Exile, something like that. Done. Yep, and our opponent concedes, because they knew that we would just, put the Elish Norn into play, and then that would kill all their stuff, and then we'd attack them for 9, and yep, that was it. All right, so in this matchup, Duress is probably good on the draw, because a lot of their good spells are Duressable. The Torrential Gearhulk, this plan here is bad. The Dispersal is one of the reasons why the Torrential Gearhulk's in, because you can cast the Dispersal part with the Torrential Gearhulk and kill opponents' Planeswalkers and stuff. But that hasn't worked out very well for us, really. I don't think our opponent really has good ways to interact with our graveyard, because they certainly don't play Rest in Peace. Rest in Peace is actually good against them with all of the kitchen finks they have, stuff like that. So maybe just like this. The only other thing I could think of is maybe a Vendilion Click for something else that's expensive. Maybe for a Teferi. But now let's just run it back like that. Just run it back. All right, this hand is, well, actually I thought it was a little bit better than it is. It's missing black mana. I think we'll keep it anyway. Okay, we drew a path. That makes this hand a lot better. The best draw on our deck right now would be basic. Oh, it actually wouldn't be basic swamp. We need a second white mana and a second black mana. So maybe this hand isn't as good as I thought it was. All right, so the opponent has the Devoted Druid. I think we're kind of obligated to path it. If we path it during our opponent's upkeep, they can make 2 mana off of it and Collected Company, but they'd be able to Collected Company anyway next turn. So 1, 2... Oh, no, they'd be able to probably... They might be able to kill it or create infinite mana during their upkeep and then kill us. Because they could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, chord for 2, make infinite mana, chord again. Yeah, so we're going to path it here. All right, let's see what the opponent's got. This isn't looking good for the home team here. Next turn, we can secure the wastes for like 2. Nissa Vital Force is one of my favorite cards. That's awesome. All right, we're going to get beat down with Forest this match. I think we're just dead. There's not really anything we can do here against a Nissa Vital Force. Yeah, I mean, this is really bad. We can secure the wastes for 2 so we don't take a hit off of the forest, but we don't have a good answer in this deck, really, to a Planeswalker. The best we have is, like, Cryptic Command. We're supposed to, you know, quickly beat our opponent, not, like, try to grind through our opponent's Planeswalkers. The only good one we have is that Dispersal. When they have no cards in hand, we can make them pick it up and then discard it. Oh, yeah, we are so dead. Yeah, I'm just going to concede to that. All right, so the opponent's got the Nissa plus the value plan. We are just, oh, man, just totally buried by that. We didn't even really board in a way that made us vulnerable to that. It's just that our opponent just went bigger than us. All right, so maybe we can bring back the Gear Hulk and bring in Vendilion Click. Possibly cut like the Condemn. One of these. It's just not good against Tireless Tracker. That's what I'm worried about, is our opponent just being able to use the Tireless Tracker against us. Yeah, all right, we'll cut that. And maybe just not the click either. All right, love to play first. Oh, boy. I mean, I think we're just supposed to keep hands like this. Like, it's got the Elesh Norn in it, which is really awkward. Doesn't have Jace in it. But it's got all our colors of mana and spells that, you know, help us cast things. I think we're supposed to just keep it. Unfortunately, all the 2 Cryptic Commands in our deck are really making a lot of our mana decisions really awkward. Because, like, I'd like to be able to get black with one of these lands, but if we get black, then we can't cast our Verdicts on 4. Just because we don't have black-white lands in our deck, because they don't help us cast Cryptic Command. Maybe I should just have a black-white land in our deck somewhere, just because... All right, well, we drew the other black-white land here, or the blue-white land, so we can get black with this Flooded Strand, which is definitely a positive thing for us. We have a Path to Exile to interact with our opponent, and hopefully we can gifts for some sweepers. So what I'm thinking is going to happen here, because we can't gifts for the Elesh Norn. All right, so there's Devoted Druid. The opponent's going to play a bird here. All right, so we'll just go ahead and path the Devoted Druid here. And then we can get black here. Because we're not going to get basic. And then we can gifts for sweepers and hopefully aren't dead by that point. All right, so there's Recruiter. Oh, okay, and it looks like our opponent's just going to try to draw some cards off of it, which is fine. So we'll go ahead and get black here. All right, and honestly, I think I'm fine with letting our opponent flip this Duskwatch Recruiter. I'm not going to cast this Gifts main phase. So our opponent will activate the Duskwatch Recruiter here, pick up some card, and then it's going to flip during our opponent's next turn, which means, oh, they whiffed. Okay, so it'll flip during our opponent's next turn, which means that if they want to use the ability, they have to use it now, so they don't. And now it's going to incentivize them to play out a bunch of cheap creatures, which hopefully we can then just kill with our gifts. Okay, that's fine. Sure. We could also, I guess, make 3/1/1s and block it, but that doesn't seem particularly good. All right, the opponent probably has Cryptic Command, so we will go ahead and probably just value gifts here. We're far enough behind where the sweepers aren't particularly good, and we might potentially need some way to interact with our opponent. We'll probably get like a sweeper and see if our opponent wants to give it to us, but we're not going to go all in on the sweeper plan. Brutality seems pretty good too, and we'll go ahead and grab a Verdict. So we do Verdict, Gifts, Brutality, and Cryptic Command. And based on what our opponent gives us, should give us some information about what's in their hand. We're kind of on the like hard cast Elesh Norn plan. We're hoping to hit some more land drops, cast the Elesh Norn. Okay, so our opponent is fine giving us Collective Brutality and Gifts. All right, there's a Talisman, which means that we can actually cast the... So 4, 5, 6. So that means we can cast the Elesh Norn next turn, which is kind of cool. So we'll play Island, Talisman, and then Brutality our opponent, pitching the Secure the Wastes. Well, I guess Secure the Waste blocks. Let's just take a look at our opponent's hand and not discard anything. I don't think killing any of these creatures is particularly relevant. Okay, so our opponent cast a Collected Company. All right, they got Finks and Remorseful Cleric. All right, that's fine. We are going to take a little bit of a beating here, though. All right, and we get rid of that. So our opponent's hand is actually really soft to Elesh Norn. They just have Eternal Witness and Path. The Crawland Hoarder is going to flip here back. So everything our opponent has will die to the Elesh Norn that we play. And hopefully they play out some more things. Everything in their hand will let us then kill the Elesh Norn, but they're also going to lose everything they have in their hand currently. So that's kind of cool. All right, we'll take 6 or 7. That's fine. And we'll see how many things our opponent gets back. All right, so there's the Ewit. Ewit will return probably Collected Company. Yeah, that's fine. All right, and then we get to hard cast the Elesh Norn, and then our opponent will need to rip a land, I guess, in order to make this work for them. Oh, we even draw a Catacombs, which means that we don't have to pay extra for that. So we'll just get the Elesh Norn here. So just, natural turn 6, draw the sweeper. Our opponent blows up our graveyard, persists the Kitchen Finks, that dies again. Our opponent will get to cast their other Eternal Witness to get back the Path. But at that point, yeah, okay, so they get to cast the Eternal Witness, get Path, and then that the Eternal Witness dies immediately. They get the Path back. So we know they have Duskwatch Recruiter and Path in hand, and Collected Company. So then they Path it, which is fine. We'll get a island or plains. And then we have gifts here for Unburial Rights, Iona, and we can name green here, which is really sweet. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll name gifts ungiven, target our opponent. You know, they just have a bunch of green cards in hand. And we can get Unburial Rights, Iona. Okay. And then we can bring that back. Name green, because we know that 2 of their 3 cards in their hand are green. Do that and pass the turn. And then just beat our opponent down over the course of a couple of turns here. They have to draw like exactly Path here, which would be a insane rip. I would just applaud our opponent if they were able to get there. And we're just going to get a big Secure the Wastes here. Attack our opponent for 7, and then our opponent's dead at this turn here if they don't draw something. Cool. All right, guys, so we 4-1'd the league. I was very impressed by this deck. I thought that it did quite a few things that were super interesting. Let's see if we can go back to the... so return to details, view the previous deck. So I thought that this Torrential Gearhulk Discovery Dispersal might have been too cute, but the Connive and Concoct were an interesting addition to the deck. We were able to win 1 game using the Connive and Concoct that the old Unburial Rights for Iona or Elishnorn wouldn't have been particularly good at. You saw there was a couple matchups there. The Infect matchup for like blue-white control is usually really poor because they... your removal spells don't match up super well against what they're trying to do at a macro level. Like you're removing them and they have just as many cards, if not more, that protect them from removal spells as you have removal spells in your deck. And like you saw there, that's why we just kind of paused and we're just like, hey, we have a removal spell. We're thinking about whether or not to cast it. The opponent went for it and we just blew him out. And then we were, just won the game. It was pretty fun. We didn't get to try out the Unmoored Ego. I was really excited about that. We didn't really play against any combo decks, so we didn't bring in the Unmoored Ego or the Surgical Extraction. We just kind of played some good matchups the whole time for this deck, not for control in general, but for this deck. We played some good matchups and just, kind of ran right through them. Lost to humans, which is unfortunate. It's a little bit rough because their humans get out of Elishnorn range pretty quick, and with the 1-card combo, it's easy to disrupt. But yeah, other than that, I was very happy with it. Stay tuned for the rest of this week. We're going to be playing some more Guilds of Ravnica cards, and I'm excited to share those videos with you. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time.